The Giants bats wake up in San Diego, at least for an inning. Was Heliot Ramos out of line with his comments? And should the Giants be interested in all-star second baseman Ketel Marte? That's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics, with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show in Sacramento at Sacktown Sports 1140, the Alan Stiles Show. You can catch that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday as well. I host for the Sacramento Rivercats. You can catch me at Rivercats Games emceeing, and I'm lucky enough to cover a team that I've been a fan of all my life. It's time to break down last night's game against the Padres, all of the Heliot Ramos drama, and the Giants' interest in Ketel Marte. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. So it turns out the Giants still know how to win a baseball game, I should say specifically a game to start a series, as they did win against the Rays, but the series was already over. So they're able to beat the Padres, who they hadn't beat when the Padres came up to Oracle, and it was clearly a game that the Giants really wanted from the very first at-bat. It was clear a weight had been lifted from the Giants' shoulders, getting a little break from Oracle Park, back-to-back home runs from Ramos and Devers. Then Wilmer Flores turns back the clock to earlier this season, and he sends one out of Petco Park. It just felt like the Giants got a bit bogged down from the 1901 adjacent losing streak and all the breaks that didn't go their way while in Oracle Park during that homestand. They get out to Petco Park. They're hitting home runs. They're getting home runs called back for fan interference, even if it barely grazed an arm. We'll take it. Balls hitting bases for the Giants. It was much needed. So now we'll see if they can keep it going. There aren't a lot of takeaways because honestly, not much happened after that first inning. There were some debates on whether or not they should have left Robbie Ray in. And honestly, I've gotten on Bob Melvin a good bit here within this first week, and now we're on the second week of me taking over the show. But look, man, Casey Schmidt makes that error. Bob gets called out when he leaves a pitcher in too long. He gets called out when he takes the pitcher out. So I don't really want to have this conversation when the Giants win. We can talk about it when the Giants lose, but when the Giants win, that's just like the old adage goes, all's well that ends well. So whether he did or not, it doesn't matter to me because the Giants won the baseball game. So I'm not going to spend time on that. Look, if it comes up tonight, then we can talk about it, but hopefully we're just celebrating another Giants victory. There was a funny note, though, just getting back to the Oracle Park stuff. Rafi Devers, that home run that he hit, which was, what was that? The right center home run would have been a home run in every other ballpark besides, you guessed it, Oracle Park. But again, they weren't playing at Oracle Park, so we don't have to worry about that. Still kind of a funny note because the Giants ended up winning 4-3. And we've literally seen this happen time and time again where they have a really nice hit. Jung-Hoo Lee, it's happened to him multiple times. But in that in that dead zone of Oracle Park, it just doesn't work out. So thank you, Petco Park. That one gets out, and the Giants end up winning by 1 run. Shout out to the pitching staff as well. Robbie Ray goes 6 2/3. Ryan Walker helped out as well. And we actually got a Randy Rodriguez sighting, which we were not sure whether or not we were ever going to see Randy Rodriguez again. I forgot what he looked like. So it was really nice to see Randy Rodriguez doing his thing. And it just, the vibes were great. You see Drew Gilbert being memed everywhere for freaking out on the bench. It just felt like all the shoulders collectively just dropped a little bit, leaving Oracle Park. And sometimes that's all you need. Now, it's unfortunate. I'm not going to, give the Giants a full pass because you're supposed to win games. And, you lost whatever it was, 15 of 16, and essentially took yourself out of the wild card. But the reality is, it is what it is. You can't do anything about it now. There's still 5.5 games back, so work to do. But it did make you think, okay, maybe they found something. And honestly, it was just nice to see them come out hot. It was nice to see them happy, right? We're going to talk about Heliot Ramos and everything that happened with him these last 24, 48 hours. But it was just nice to see. It was also nice to see the Giants doing damage against a lefty, even if it was a lefty that they just saw a couple days ago. So it made them a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, Nestor Cortez, he got hit early. Okay, they touched him up early, and they didn't really do much else after that, or literally anything. But they didn't have to. So they have 3 more against the Padres. Hopefully they can keep it going. And one note just on Petco Park in general, that's somewhere I really would like to go and I haven't got out to yet. Definitely felt like there were a lot of Giants fans. There was a call, I think it was in the bottom of the ninth, on a Randy Rodriguez ball, or it was a ball. It looked like a strike. And I heard a lot of people felt like they were rooting for the Giants. And by the way, home plate umpire, I mean, brother, what is going on there? You thought it was 14-0, not 4-0. He opened that strike zone so much very, very quickly, and I didn't quite understand why. But again, all's well that ends well. The Giants are able to take care of business, and it was just nice to see. Wish they were able to do that a bit sooner, maybe when the Padres were visiting them up in Oracle. But hey, we're not talking about a loss right now, so that definitely makes you feel better about what's been going on with them. This is what we're talking about, though, and this is going to come up time and time again on this show, because we are on every single day, Monday through Friday. This could be the beginning. If you look at the math of it, this could be the beginning of, okay, the Giants are winning games now. They end on a good note. It's not good enough to get into the playoffs, but they end on a good note. And, I'm not coming after anybody's job, but you kind of forget why this winning doesn't matter and why they're already out of it. And Bob Melvin, they've already picked up that 2026 option, whether it truly matters or not. Bob Melvin, they're able to convince themselves that Bob Melvin should hang around. So that's what's going to be tough about this whole thing if you are somebody that thinks that they should move on. Because if the Giants just do enough and, the last 30 games, they show a little bit of promise, it's the easier answer, right? If they end on a pretty good streak, not good enough to make it into the playoffs, but with a pretty good record, it won't be that easy to move on from Bob Melvin. Now, I'm not going to bring this up every game that the Giants win, but they've won 2 in a row now. They're still in obviously, they're in San Diego for 3 more games. They got an opportunity against the best team in baseball after that, right? And I think there's a Dodger series and a Cubs series, all good teams, all solid teams. So if they keep their head above water, and then towards the end where this thing kind of eases up for them, we could be having a conversation where it's, they did end with one of the best records in baseball, ... after they were essentially out of contention. So I promise you I won't talk about it every day, but this was a prime example of what we kind of discussed last week, as far as the Giants just doing enough to be respectable towards the end, but not enough to get into the playoffs. When we return, let's talk about Ramos Gate. That's what I'm calling it. Heliot Ramos upsetting some people with what he said, and the SF Chronicle was all over it. So don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling out your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on Joe Flacco for MVP, who just got named the starter for the Browns. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Let's discuss the Ramos gate, as I am calling it. So yesterday, hours before the game, SF Chronicles' Scott Ostler dropped an article that included quotes from multiple players, and most of it was regarding Bob Melvin, but it was the quote from Heliot Ramos that made headlines and rubbed some fans the wrong way. Here it is in regards to Bob Melvin and the team. Quote, outside people don't know anything, Ramos said, clearly referring to the fact that fans don't know what's going on in the clubhouse. That's Scott Ostler, his piece on that. That's the type of person he is. That doesn't mean he's not a great manager. When we're winning, everybody was on our side. Now it's like all the fans are against us and all that. I don't get it. We're here and we know what's going on. We know what we're feeling. We know what we're working for. But fans are going to be fans. We can't do nothing about that. Okay, that made some people upset. Now, this was also before Heliot Ramos hits that home run, something he hadn't done since the Giants were in Sacramento for 4th of July. Okay, that made some people upset, felt like Ramos was ripping the fans a little bit. He did go on to say, here's another quote, I feel like he just tries not to to accommodate everyone. He tries to make everybody feel comfortable so we can play at our best. That's Ramos. He's mostly just defending his guy, right? So I think he was trying to protect his manager as he sees clearly all the talk, but it came off the wrong way. It was just rough timing, and it was unfortunate because this stuff happens and it makes players not want to talk to the media, right? Because, hey, you're twisting my words, whatever it is. Now, in this situation, I don't know that his words were necessarily twisted, but it just was not the right time. If you look around Major League Baseball and how empty some of the ballparks are, Giants fans are always going to be off limits unless you're talking about saying things that they said to you that are completely inappropriate or out of bounds. But being upset that you were matching losing streaks we haven't seen since William McKinley, then subsequently the Theodore Roosevelt administration. Yes, Giants fans are well within their right. And, you know, he'll learn in those situations. He's still only been an everyday player for a couple years now, right? So he'll learn in those situations. You honestly just kind of got to wear it, right? The reality is Bob Melvin is not going to get fired or keep his job based on how fans talk about him. But find me a fan base that wouldn't be calling for someone's head after losing 15 of 16 in the middle of a wild card race. So it didn't make me overly upset. I just knew when I read it, it wouldn't go over well. And I'm glad he had a good game last night, got to have some fun with Padres fans. It also tells me if he's seen that, he's clearly seen whatever people have been saying about him in left field. And maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Since that's an area where he really does need to improve. But, you know, I wouldn't call it no harm, no foul, because you have to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. You have to be a little bit more aware of what is happening with your team. But I would say that's a conversation between him, his agent, his PR team, the Giants PR team, to say, hey, Giants fans are off limits, right? We're packing this thing out 35,000 a night, more than that when we're losing at a historical rate. So Giants fans are always going to be off limits. We understand that things were rough and you're trying to protect your guy, but that's not really your job, right? Your job is to correctly field balls in left field when you're in left field and hit the baseball. That's your job. And I'm not saying that he can't say anything, right? You can say whatever you want, but you're going to face backlash. And NBC Sports Bay Area, they had him on the post game because he was a part of a lot of the game. He had the fan interference that ended up taking away a home run from Xander Bogaerts. And again, Giants won by 1 run. So, they were playing with fire a little bit. Then on top of that, he had kicked off the game with the home run. So NBC's trying to figure out, okay, who do we want to go with? Then I'm going with Heliot Ramos. And I'm just watching, just knowing, all right, this guy probably wants to say 2-word answers and just get out of there. Just get out of there. Don't say anything else that could get misconstrued. But I honestly don't think it was terribly misconstrued. He essentially said, when we're winning, he did say, when we're winning, everybody's happy. When we're losing, people have things to say. Well, yeah, that's kind of how it goes, especially when you're losing in a way that we have never seen in our lifetime. Literally, there is not one fan, one Giants fan living right now that was around the last time the Giants did what they did during the homestand. Nobody was even close to alive. Nobody. So with that being said, yeah, people are going to, I'm doing the math here. I guess technically I'm double checking. Okay, well, you're born in at 50 years old. Maybe there was one right at 100, whatever years old, but chances are no. So nobody had seen that before. It didn't look good. Heads are going to roll when something like that happens. You just got to wear it and say it. And internally, hey guys, we're going to figure this thing out. Now, I do appreciate Heliot Ramos for trying to be open, and that's why I'm trying not to roast him and rip him on it because, for me, somebody in the media, I like when athletes are honest, and I appreciate when athletes are honest. But at the same time, you have to come with those repercussions. So I've always said, I understand why some athletes just do the athlete speak and just say, okay, we're not going to, we're not going to say anything of note. We have to do media availability. Hey, yeah, we work really hard. They work really hard. We're trying our best to win games and get out of there. I've never necessarily gotten on athletes. I think it's boring and it doesn't help me when I'm trying to, speak about it on a podcast or a show or write about it. But I understand why some athletes just opt to go in that direction. I do get that. So as far as Heliot Ramos is concerned, and people were, coming after me a little bit in a weird way, I just think a lot of people were frustrated, right? And people were frustrated thinking that the media made something out of nothing. People were frustrated as to how Heliot Ramos responded. People were frustrated as to how the media responded to Heliot Ramos. All I said was I'm not going to rip him, or I didn't think he was trying to rip the fans, but it's just not good timing. And somehow people weren't happy about that. So again, this is what happens when you do things that people have literally never seen before. Nobody was around to see you do this the last time, right? You weren't even in the same state the last time you did this. So, a lot of people were there's a lot of infighting, and it just comes with the territory when you don't win games. So look, Heliot Ramos, let's just wipe the slate clean. If you were upset about it, I get it. If you thought that it was kind of overblown, I kind of get that too, but it's going to happen when you're losing games. And look, nobody cares if all you got to do. And I think the biggest thing is that there was no exaggeration, right? Or I guess on the opposite end, the exaggeration, since the reality is the Giants and Giants fans endured a ridiculously bad homestand, and they did not decide we're not going. They continued to go. So I think that's the biggest part of it. If this was a 5-game losing streak and Giants fans were going crazy, then I would understand, or whatever it is, because I know the actual streak, but the terrible homestand, if it was a couple games and Giants fans were freaking out, I would understand where Heliot Ramos is coming from. But this was really, really bad. So when things are that bad, you kind of just got to say, yeah, we stunk and we're trying to be better. That's what I would say. I understand why he didn't want to say that, because his manager was getting the brunt of it, but that's kind of what you have to do in those situations. That's just what it is. All right, one more segment with you. When we return, should the Giants go after the one, the only Ketel Marte and all of the drama that he's been surrounded with out there in Arizona? Do not move a muscle. More Locked On Giants coming up next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big game quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. I've used PrizePicks for a couple seasons, and I love it because of how simple it is. I can get my lineup in literally up until game time. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you still double your money. PrizePicks puts their members first with all withdrawals that are fast and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. One more segment with you, and this is about the one, the only Ketel Marte. This Ketel Marte story has been quite confusing, or maybe I should use the word fascinating. Basically, this is what came out from Bob Nightingale just a couple days ago. Here it is. There has been private criticism of Marte for asking days off when not injured since at least last season, but it intensified inside the organization when Marte took a day off before the All-Star break. He played in the All-Star game and without telling Diamondbacks officials, did not fly back with his fellow All-Star teammates to Phoenix. He instead went home to the Dominican Republic and vacation with his family. He told D-backs officials that he would return to Phoenix for their first game after the All-Star break, but didn't show up at Chase Field until the following Saturday afternoon, missing both games, including his own bobblehead promotion against the St. Louis Cardinals. So this thing right now is pretty darn messy, all right? They went into damage control yesterday, and Ketel Marte spoke in front of the media and said anytime he's missed it's been to manage his body and has been a part of the plan in place from his training staff and coaching staff. The bottom line here is that the Diamondbacks could be swayed to move him. I don't really know what the Diamondbacks are doing. They had that random World Series run where they did lose in the World Series, but they got there. They have talent, but I wouldn't say it was fluky because they are in the mix, but I'm just not really sure what their current process or current plan is. You know, I don't think they'd let him go within the division unless there's a perceived massive overpay. And I'm telling you right now, we could probably all guess who they would want. And he's out here in Sacramento with me right now. I don't believe that the Giants should do that. I'm just going to tell you right now. And we are not in the offseason yet. Okay. And look, nobody likes a trade machine more than me in really any sport. But I'm telling you right now, I would not do it. And I wouldn't do it for a couple reasons. Number one, I wouldn't do it because Bryce Eldridge has been balling, right? And he's 20 years old. And you're just now starting to see your farm system move back up the ranks, which we talked about last week, how they're now 18. And I believe they were 28 back in March, right? So their farm system is starting to build itself up. And if you're the Giants, it is a position of need. It's just he's the guy that I say no. You want to look at other guys? Cool. But that guy, we just can't do it. We cannot do it. Based on the history of Giants draft picks, right? You need somebody to hit. I just think from the fan perspective, to be honest with you, you need somebody to hit in a big way. But it is a position of need. The other part of this is the stuff that he's saying, right? I'm not sure how Buster would get down with that. Whether it's Bob Melvin still managing the team or not, I know some of you are curious what that would look like. It just seems a bit far-fetched to me right now, simply because of everything I laid out. But outside of the issues that Ketel Marte has had with his team, he's simply one of the best offensive shortstops we've seen in a really, really, really long time. This season, he's third in OPS, He's 12th in batting average, and he's got 23 home runs, right? You could probably make the argument if there's an organization that could keep him within the guardrails, that organization could be the Giants. But I think it would be a horrible move for the Diamondbacks. And I don't see the Diamondbacks making that move. If I'm the Diamondbacks, I get the phone call from Buster Posey. I say Bryce Eldridge or I'm hanging up. And if I'm Buster Posey, I'm hanging up. That's how I think that conversation goes. Not because of the Giants either making the right or wrong call. I just don't think that this is something that the Giants should do, because I don't know if it puts them over the top. And I am in no way going to compare Casey Schmidt or Christian Koss to Ketel Marte. But if it costs you Bryce Eldridge, you better be sure that this thing is going to put you in a World Series conversation. And I don't think it does. Right. And if you're the Diamondbacks, you move off of this guy. Clearly, there have been some issues, but if you hand him to the Giants, who what the Giants can do when they get rolling, and they still got the banners and they still got the even year swag, that's the team that there are a couple teams where you're the Diamondbacks, you say, we just cannot do it. Look, if the Rockies want Ketel Marte, I don't think it's necessarily a division thing. I think it's a division with competence thing. If the Rockies wanted Ketel Marte and they wanted, I don't know what the Rockies farm system looks like, I think the Diamondbacks would definitely have a conversation, because you wouldn't be worried about the Diamondbacks or the Rockies doing anything with him moving forward. So I don't think it's necessarily division. I don't think it's necessarily National League. I think that there are just certain, if the Pirates, not that the Pirates would do that, but if the Pirates did want Ketel Marte, I don't think the Diamondbacks would be against it. I think it's specifically, there are a couple teams where you cannot move him. And the difference is, one of those teams, you could be swayed to move him because of how good the farm system is. And yeah, it's the Smurfs. It's that team in LA. If the Diamondbacks, if they say, hey, well, the Dodgers are willing to give up all these top draft picks and top prospects, Giants, what do you got? And the Giants say, well, we don't want to give you Bryce Eldridge. Can we interest you in something else? I think that ends the conversation. If the Dodgers are interested, but when are the Dodgers not interested, right? Anytime somebody's available, it's the Dodgers, it's the Mets. You throw the Phillies in there as well. I'm just saying from the National League, throw the Phillies in there as well. And that's pretty much, and that's where it ends. Then you get the fringe teams, then you get the Giants, then you get, I don't know, whoever feels like they're trying to make a move, whatever random team, the Braves, if you want to throw them in there. But it's the same three teams every time somebody becomes available. So with that being said, I think that Ketel Marte would be outstanding on the Giants, but I don't know initially, just based on these couple of days, things can change. These things are always fluid. I don't know how the Giants get there, because they don't have very much besides Bryce Eldridge, and I don't think they would be willing to give up Bryce Eldridge, nor do I think they should give up Bryce Eldridge. If you did give up Bryce Eldridge, here is the only argument I would make. Here is the only argument. You solidify one of your positions of need at second base, and you do have a first baseman in Rafi Devers for the next 8-10 years, whatever it is, and you still have Matt Chapman under contract for the next 4 or 5 years. So if you wanted to make that argument, the argument is, well, we don't really have a position of need at first base right now. I wouldn't do it, but you could pretty much make that argument. So that's where I'm at with it. I don't think it'll happen, but I do think it's interesting that it's coming up. Thank you for making Locked On your That's all I have for you today. We will be back tomorrow, as we are on Monday through Friday. Thank you for making Locked On your first. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants and making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to check us out wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to get that word out. There's a new sheriff in town. There's a new host here at Locked On Giants. And the Giants have won 2 straight. Okay, at first, they couldn't get one done with me as the host, and now they've won 2 straight. Follow me on social media at _StylesFile, Styles with an I. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.